You know, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But yeah, I feel a little insane to be like, let me spend $8,000 on a fucking deposit I can't get back if this doesn't work out.
It's gonna work out.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Especially now, I think that everyone is craving the little things that make you feel normal and make you feel human, and you can escape.
Hi, I'm Manela Malik, author, creator, founder, group trip host, and CEO just trying to figure her fucking shit out. And as you saw there while I was getting my haircut in DC, I'm in the midst of the biggest launch of my career. Yes, while I'm on vacation, I'm currently sitting on the patio at my mom's house in Hawaii, in the sunshine, waiting for my family to get ready to go to the beach. And I absolutely did this to myself, but there's a reason for the madness. Let me take you through it. So in addition to being an author, founder and creator of Feed the Malik, the digital platform where most folks have been introduced to me for the first time, I also host group trips. I plan these trips to be the trips of my little girl dreams, right? Designed with the little black girl in mind who wanted to see the world and feel free and go on these grand adventures, but didn't know where to start. And for the past few years, I've been hosting these trips personally and taking folks along from Jordan to Egypt to Morocco to Peru and Portugal, and building this community around these experiences where people really lean into the scary parts. They say yes to something new. They try new foods and they go to new places, and we do it all together. And the way I've historically launched and sold the trips was successful by most metrics. They sold out. All of my trips sold out, and they sold out pretty quickly. And so you might ask, why the hell am I changing things up now and putting myself in a situation where I'm doing this huge launch in the midst of the holidays? Well, just because something sold doesn't mean it worked for me, for my business, and doesn't mean it was sustainable over the long term. So let me explain. So historically, I would build and launch my trips one at a time. And what that meant was I was focused on just one destination, one departure. I would put it together, build the sales materials, and then sell it. Just one trip. After that was done, we would start work on the next one, and then we'd have to launch and sell the next one. And like I said, this has been extremely successful for my business over the years. But the issue is, it put us in constant launch mode. I felt like I didn't have time to tell the stories I wanted to tell as a content creator and influencer and storyteller because I was always in launch mode. It was always time to sell the next thing. It was always time to promote the next thing. We didn't have space to plan, to breathe, and to tell other stories, which, yes, I sell group trips, but I have other shit I want to talk about too. So I got together with my team and I said, we got to fix this. I want to have more control, I want to have more space, and I want to be able to do more than just launch all the time. And we came up with a strategy. Instead of launching one at a time, we're going to plan the trips further in advance, plan multiple trips at a time, and launch a few trips together as a bundle, once in the fall or winter. Like, it doesn't look like winter, but this is a winter launch because it's December, and once in the spring. And if we could move to this more regularized launch cycle, it would mean that customers would have more time to plan in advance and compare trips and see which one works for them. We would have more time to plan in advance and tell stories about other things and make sure that we're really dialing in on the customer experience, on the traveler experience, rather than worried about launch all the time. And everybody would get more breathing room and would have a little bit more agency and choice in the process. Now, I think we're going to be successful. I have marketed and sold these trips before, but this is going to be different for us. Typically, a trip has 10 to 15 spots, and that's all we have to sell. And for this new launch, we have multiple trips to sell. So instead of 10 to 15 spots, we're looking at 50 to maybe max 75 spots, depending on demand. And I also had to put down an $8,000 deposit for one of these trips, because if I haven't mentioned before, my experiences on my group trips are bespoke, they're unique, they're custom, they're things that you can't book on another travel company's website. And some of those experiences require hefty deposits, which we do pay. And so we've put some money down, we have taken on that risk, and now we have to see if we can sell 3 to 4 times the volume at once than we've ever sold before. And now I'm gonna run to the beach with my family, who's looking at me like, girl, if you don't get ready, and then I'll come back later and we'll take you through all the prep we've done, the strategy for this launch, and we'll see if it's successful. Okay, post-beach, we're back. I'm sitting on the bed in the best bedroom at my mom's house, and here's how we prepped for this launch, that if all goes according to plan, should bring in more than $200,000 worth of revenue, which for one launch, my small business, that's a significant milestone. Now first, we've been prepping for this launch since September 2nd was when we sent the first prep email. And in the 3 months since, I've had endless planning calls with my assistant as we've strategized about the launch, the cadence of the launch, the comms behind the launch. We've compared hotels to figure out where should we stay for the opening night and the closing night, where should we have our welcome dinner and our final dinner, what wow factor things can we incorporate into the schedule to really make this special, and so much more. And in that time, I've also written out drafts for the email comms for the launch. Now, I run my launches through my email newsletter on Substack, and in these drops, I want to give people detail. I want to explain and really make it clear why these experiences are special, but I also want to layer in emotion and a personal connection, because I've been to all of these places that I'm hosting trips in. These trips are really based on my own experiences and my own, authentic emotions about this place come into play. And frankly, buying decisions are very often more emotional than they are rational, so we definitely want both in the email comms. And we've also worked through pricing strategies. So we've compared the prices of our competitors and really tried to find a balance between something that people can hopefully afford but still feel sustainable for us, given that it takes 3 to 4 months to stand up a trip, and I have all of this groundwork that I've done in advance as well. And most importantly, we've also spent the last few months documenting every step of the process. So from the initial email to contact a vendor to try to put this together, to how we coordinate pricing and comms over the 3 to 4 months, how we create the sales materials and the sales pages and the launch materials, and even who to contact for trip-specific issues, all of that's been documented. And we've worked through it to create detailed SOPs with templates and draft comms and all of these questions answered, even showing you where to click on specific pages, so that hopefully with each future launch, we don't have to start from scratch, where we can have the institutional knowledge to continue to host these trips, but maybe we can cut down the prep time from 3 to 4 months to 2 to 3 months, and somewhat of a lighter lift where it's more focused on our expertise on the ground than it is on all this other stuff that goes into a launch, because we have that other admin stuff down. So that's what it's taken to get to here. Me sitting in my mom's room in Hawaii, getting ready to launch over the holidays. And it's been a very long road, but I am very, very excited. And yes, that is my wet towel from the shower behind me. This is the real behind the scenes of how something like this comes together. I'm getting ready to launch, and let's talk a little bit about what my goals are for this launch. My goal obviously is to sell out, right? If we can sell out all of these multiple trips we're launching at once, that means that I will get paid back for the deposit that I paid, but even more, it will mean that this new launch cycle we're trying to move into that's more sustainable for us is working, right? That's the most clear indicator that it's working. But at the same time, I'm home for the holidays, and my secondary goal is that we're able to get through the launch without me having to work full days, right? I really want to be free. I don't want to work every day. So my goal is hopefully to sell out, but be able to get through the launch and run all the comms and all this stuff that's been pre-drafted and templated, etc., and only have to work 5 hours a week. That would be amazing. That would mean that I can continue to run these trips, but that in the future, I would have more space to focus on other kinds of storytelling as well. But as a founder, every time I do this, I wonder, are people really gonna buy this? Are they gonna show up, right? We've done the legwork. We've thought through all the aspects of this launch and this system and the comms, and we also have experience doing this. I've been selling and running these trips for a long time, but it is a bit of a risk. But if I pull this off, we're talking about $200,000+ worth of revenue. That's not profit, but hopefully $60,000 profit. Minus tax and expenses, that's a lot less in my pocket, but that's real money. And it means that I have more space to say no to brands that piss me off or that I think are maybe not the best fit. I have more space to plan really fun, creative video projects for things I care about, but maybe aren't the most brand marketable, maybe aren't the most sponsor friendly. And it also means I can do things like maybe give my team a bonus and set more money aside for retirement so that I don't feel like I'm on this constant hamster wheel. So that's really the dream, right? That's the dream of every entrepreneur. And I'm gonna put this camera down for the next week or so while we run this launch, and then I'm gonna come back and finish this video and give you guys a breakdown of how sales went, how revenue's looking, lessons learned, what we're gonna be tweaking next time, the whole thing. And I'm not gonna put it in a part 2 because I hate it when people do that to me. So I'll see you guys after Christmas. I'm back on the East Coast. It's January 5th, 2026. So it's been a minute. And you can tell I'm back on the East Coast because it's like only 6 p.m. It's pitch black. I had to set up my whole light setup in my apartment to film this video. And I'm under the blankie and it's cold. I miss Hawaii. But here's where we are. Here's how the launch went. So first and foremost, I stuck to my goal to take my time in Hawaii mostly off. I worked for about an hour a day. And then there were 2 days where I worked for 3 hours. So much less than I typically work. And in that time, we launched and we sold $323,000 worth of group trip experiences through that launch while I was only working an hour, maybe 2 a day on average. And we initially launched with 3 trips, Morocco North, Morocco South, and 1 Egypt departure. And Egypt was actually so popular that we added a second departure and that sold out immediately just from the wait list. So by all accounts, we did what we needed to do with this launch. So let me take you through exactly how we did it, why I think it worked, and things we learned in the process that I'm going to tweak next time. So first, let me explain how the launch ran. Before I even went on vacation, before I started the launch sequence, I did some pre-selling. I laid the groundwork. And I did that by doing some storytelling about both destinations to my email list, which I house my email list on Substack. My newsletter there is called Unfiltered and Fed, and it's where I share everything from travel stories to food memories and everything in between. And it's also where I make the vast majority of my income and do the vast majority of my direct selling. I find that selling via email newsletter is a lot more effective than selling on social media, trying to sell directly from TikTok or Instagram. And so that's how I run my launches now. And before I went on the trip, because I've traveled previously quite extensively to Morocco and traveled as well to Egypt, I did some storytelling about both destinations. I wanted people to be able to see and feel and almost taste it virtually and understand why these destinations were special and also understand the intentionality that went into these trips, right? I wanted people who were considering the Egypt trip to know that I spent about $8,000 of my own money to charter a private sailboat on the Nile just for our group so that we could have a truly special experience. I wanted them to be so excited by the time the trips opened that they were already ready to buy. They knew the dates, they knew how much it was gonna cost, and they had this really rich, authentic, emotional, at some points, storytelling to connect to guide them to whichever experience would be best for them. So that's what I did before I even left. And then I had a launch email ready to go that I had pre-scheduled on Substack that went out at noon on a Monday a few weeks before Christmas. So that first launch email was very direct. It wasn't anything emotional. I didn't do a ton of storytelling. It wasn't fancy. I think the subject line was trip registration is now open. As I said, I had laid the groundwork and I was selling to a warm audience at this point. Now, there were a couple things about that email though that I do think made it work. First and foremost, right at the top of the email, I led with social proof with a beautiful quote from someone who had been on a trip with me before that I think spoke to my ideal customer, that spoke to the experience and how wonderful it was. If someone was on the fence, this quote really would, I think, push them to one side or the other. And I did lean on a sense of urgency, but not manipulation, right? I hate it when you get those sales emails that we never run the sale. I've even seen some where they're advertising on Instagram like they're closing down, but I think I saw the same ad a year ago. I don't believe in manipulating your audience, but I do think if you have some urgency that you can extend that's honest, then extend that to them. So what I said was that these trips are expected to sell out very quickly, and that's true. Historically, my trips have sold out within a week, often in just a few days, sometimes a few hours after launch, right? So I wasn't manipulating them, I was being honest and just letting them know that now is decision-making time. And then I did use vivid imagery, even though this wasn't really a pure storytelling drop like my prior email newsletters. But because I had written those stories about Morocco and about Egypt, I could pull some of that language to make trip descriptions that were really rich, right? Instead of just saying, come to Morocco, I got to talk about the camel burgers and getting your custom leather jackets made, things that people can connect to and paint a picture of in their mind. And then I did end this first email with an emotional closing, which is a very real closing, that I built these trips for the little girl in me who always dreamed of being able to see the world and to have these incredible experiences like I used to read in Nat Geo magazine, and who just wanted to feel free. And for me, that's a very real thing that I hold on to. That is who I design my trips for. So again, trying to talk to my ideal customer, I let them know that that is who my trips are for. And so I sent that out, very anxious that day, right? I've never launched more than one trip at a time. I've never had a launch this big where I'm launching all these things at once. I put money on the line for this. Very, very nervous. And 24 hours later, here's where we stood. Egypt was sold out with a long wait list, which surprised me because Egypt was also the most expensive trip that I've run. And I was worried a little bit about the high price point, but it was clear that people were really excited about Egypt, and I think probably really excited about the idea of this private chartered sailboat on the Nile, right? Taking this experience and kind of leveling it up with something that they would not ever be able to book by themselves unless they want to spend 20,000, 25? I think it's 25 total to charter the boat. And of the two Morocco trips, Morocco North and South, they were about 30% sold out altogether, but Morocco North at that point was the clear favorite. Morocco South had only had 1 or 2 bookings. And so my team and I, we looked at those numbers and we made some quick decisions. One, the wait list for Egypt was already like 35 people long, and that trip I think caps out at 18 people. So we knew that we had enough people on the wait list that if we could get a second Egypt departure with the boat, that we could run a second trip, and likely it would sell right away just to the wait list. And we also took a look at Morocco and said, we need to do some additional storytelling about Morocco. And in my mind, I think I know why Egypt sold so much better than Morocco, even though Morocco is such a popular destination. But I will explain that later in the video in the lessons learned section. But we knew we needed to do some additional storytelling about Morocco. And thankfully, I had studied abroad in Morocco for a year. I've traveled there many, many times. I celebrated my birthday there with my friends and family last year. I love Morocco. So I sat down to write another email drop that was more specifically about Morocco. So 1 week after the first launch email, the trip registration is open email, I sent the second email. And this one was really story driven. And it worked. Morocco North and South are now sold out, but let me take you through why I feel like this email was effective. So first and foremost, I did something counterintuitive. I led with honesty, and I really talked people through what was happening in this sales process. So I opened with, damn, Egypt sold out in like 10 minutes or something like that. And then I addressed this point of vulnerability that Egypt had really outshone Morocco, and that Morocco South wasn't getting any love. In that storytelling, you know, that moment of vulnerability, which is all real, true, authentic. Do not lie to people when you're trying to sell to them. That shit does not fucking work, okay? Or at least in my experience, it doesn't work for very long. It's not worth it, right? You want the trust of your audience, you want the trust of your customer, don't do it. But I continued on that line of vulnerability, and I talked about why in the past I had hosted one Morocco trip that was kind of a combination of North and South, and that even though it got really good ratings and I enjoyed it, that I felt like there were some serious issues with it. Namely that Morocco's a big country, and going out to the Sahara requires a lot of driving, which means to put it all together in one trip, you're gonna be in the car all the time, and it really compresses the experience. So there's not enough time to really take it in, to rest, to get a full 8 hours of sleep, to see everything, to do everything without feeling exhausted. And that's why I split Morocco up into 2 trips, right? I addressed the why of this experience being different than the experience I've offered in the past. And I explained that it's because we were trying to improve the product and give them a better experience, which seemed to really resonate because we saw Morocco sales jump immediately. I also included more social proof, more quotes from prior travelers who had been to Morocco specifically with me, which when I asked them for quotes, the things they sent back were just like so beautiful. I couldn't have scripted it better myself. And within a few days, Morocco North and South were sold out. So it just goes to show that, right, yes, having an email list I think is important. As a creator, I think it is one of the most important things to have direct access to your audience, to have some sort of channel that you really own and control. I back up my Substack posts and my subscriber lists elsewhere, just in case, right, I ever lose access. I want to have that channel in some form. But more importantly, I feel like building a real sense of rapport and trust with your audience, if you're a creator and you're trying to grow a creator-led brand, is so important. I really do think people have to see themselves in these stories we tell in order to buy. At least that's the model that I've built. And yes, it is really person dependent, which means I have to personally be involved in a lot of this. But you know, who's to say in 5 years we won't have developed trip products that we're so proud of and so confident in that we're ready to launch them without me, right? But first, someone's got to be there on the ground making it all happen. So that's how we made the sales. Now let's talk a little bit about lessons learned and what I think I'll do differently next time. First and foremost, that any launch you're about to start, especially as a creator, it has to feel not only authentic to you, but you gotta warm up your audience first, right? I have seen creators launch things where I'm like, I've never seen them talk about this ever before in my life, and now they're selling it. It just doesn't make sense. And people have to see things multiple times in order to make buying decisions. And so especially as a creator, right, they should see you doing it, experiencing it, enjoying it, talking about it, and then eventually selling it. And I think that's what made the initial launch emails so effective, is that I had done storytelling about Morocco and Egypt prior. Yes, in preparation of this launch, I had told these stories, but also I had traveled to these places and made content about them. So it didn't come out of nowhere that I was hosting trips there when people could say, yeah, I saw her there last year for her birthday. And I know that she studied there before, and oh, she has those pictures from Egypt. And right, it made sense to my audience. And I feel like it was clear that this was, you know, an extension of my authentic interests and practices rather than just something that I thought up that I was like, hey, I can make some money from this. And so 2 is related to that, right? Selling to a warm audience is easier. And that's why, you know, we did the storytelling emails before the launch, and I'll continue to do that. However, I think in the future, I will probably combine the storytelling into one long email that touches on every destination I'm running a trip to. So maybe snippets of stories about each place. What we did in this one was Morocco was its own storytelling email, and Egypt was its own storytelling email, and Egypt came second. Now, remember when I said I had a thought about why Morocco wasn't selling as well? Frankly, I think people were attached to the last thing that they had read, like emotionally invested, emotionally attached to. And yes, Egypt was exciting because of the boat, but Morocco, in all of my, you know, surveys that I've sent out to community, all of the chats I've done with people in real life because I've hosted events with them and trips with them before, Morocco is always one of the top destinations they want to go to. And even in the trip survey we do every year amongst my email newsletter, where I kind of gather their insights and use that to inform my planning and decision making, Morocco is always the top destination. So why did Egypt outsell Morocco? I think it's because the Egypt story was the most recent story they read in their inbox before the launch. So I'm gonna test it next launch and do one big storytelling email where I'm like, here are these places, here are why I'm taking you there, here are my memories there, right? Why these places are important to me. Trip registration opens on X date, here you go. And the next email they get will be the trip registration email. I'm just gonna do that as a trial and see whether that affects if there's a clear favorite or not amongst the trips. And the third lesson learned is that I think some things are just easier to sell. And that's just me being honest. I think it's easier in general to sell something that's kind of sexy, something that has a wow factor, like a hot air balloon or a private chartered boat, for example. Whereas in travel, some of the best experiences are more intimate and they're not as flashy, they're not as Instagrammable. So in fact, Morocco South is probably my favorite trip that I run, that stretch of Morocco, because we end up having these really intimate experiences. We have tea in a local home. We go to a rug cooperative and meet people who are literally making this incredible world-renowned craft. We have meals with local families, and we're outside of the city. We're in the High Atlas Mountains. We're in a part of Morocco where most Amazigh people still live, which is a persecuted ethnic group that's indigenous to Morocco. And it's just, you get to experience a part of this country that you probably wouldn't have if you hadn't gone here, right? That a lot of trips skip, that it's just harder to access. And it is really special. In all of our trip surveys after Morocco, that's the part that people really, really resonate with. In fact, I have someone coming on Morocco South who did Morocco with me last year, which has the same stops in the South. And I asked her, like, are you sure you're trying to do this again? She said she loved it so much she wants her boyfriend to experience it, so they're coming together this year, which is really cool to see that people are willing to go back to the same place with me again, right? That's how special it is. But it's harder to sell having a meal in a local home, even though it's so special, because it's like, it's just not as flashy as hot air balloons in the Nile, I swear. And I've seen this over and over again with travel. Storytelling about more intimate experiences can be a lot harder to get the same amount of reach, even though those experiences I think are usually people's favorites in country. So those are my lessons learned. I will continue with this sales process in a very similar way to the way we ran it this time. Though, like I said, I will combine the storytelling emails into one big story email. And I'm really, really excited. This is the first time I'm entering a year where I have a real schedule for the launches, and that schedule allows me to rest. Like I said, I've been chilling, to spread out the work, to not always be in launch mode, and also to plan ahead. So all of my 2026 trips are already planned and sold. We're now looking towards 2027, which gives us ample time to put together the kinds of experiences that I want to put my name behind, and also ample time to maybe add some new experiences, right? I'm going to Oman for February to study Arabic. I've studied there before, so I've spent a summer there before, and I've been to visit multiple times, but not really in the last 6 years. And I want to stand up a trip to Oman, but now I have a schedule, like it's planned out well in advance, so I can go and study and do some groundwork and stay at hotels and try different tour operators and see what I want my audience or my community to experience in Oman with me next time I go. That's the kind of space I've wanted to have in my schedule for a long time, and this is the first year as a creator. So I started full-time in 2020. It's 2026. So year 6 is the first time as a creator I really feel like I'm in the driver's seat. I'll take it.